Hello and welcome. I'm Adrienne Lawrence, and I'm thrilled to welcome you to Now, New, Next, WorkLife's first annual meeting of the minds. That's where we entertain smart conversations about the rapidly changing landscape of business, venture capital, and culture, all while keeping you entertained. And we have 3 action-packed days of experts and talented game changers for you. So without further ado, let's kick things off with our first event, the Great Global Burnout. And hey, don't we know a thing or two about burnout? 2020 has been ruthless. But fortunately, we have 2 incredibly insightful women to guide you, Brianne Kimmel and Arianna Huffington. Brianne is the founder and managing partner of WorkLife Ventures. She made it her life's work to invest in founders who are using better tools to reimagine their work, not only in upping their game, but the game. And Brianna was recently named by Business Insider as a top angel investor that every startup should know. And what can I say about Miss Arianna Huffington, the co-founder of the Huffington Post and author of 15 books? Well, she founded in 2016 a leading Thrive Global, a tech company that's focused on ending the stress and burnout epidemic and unlocking human potential. That's something we all could definitely use right now, especially when it comes to boosting resilience and having the key insight to stay on top. So I will go ahead and turn things over now to Brianne and Arianna. Take it away, guys.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And Arianna, thank you so much for joining today. The last few times we've seen each other have been in very different formats, beautiful offices in San Francisco and in New York, and wonderful dinners with work-life portfolio companies and friends in the ecosystem. And so it's an honor to have this conversation from our homes and have a more intimate discussion. So thank you again.
Thank you so much, Brianne. Great to be with you, and thank you for all the great work you're doing.
Awesome. Thank you. Well, I'd love to kick things off with more of a personal question. I think given the state of the world today and the coronavirus and social distancing, how are you thinking about balancing both your well-being and personal productivity? And what are some of the Thrive practices that you've personally implemented?
So first of all, I'm here in Los Angeles. As you know, I normally live in New York, but I had kept a family home here. So my daughters and my sister and I moved here. So at least we can have a garden and go on hikes and be able to integrate more of nature, even if we can't integrate more of our normal life. I find the Microsteps, as we call them at Thrive, that can help us set boundaries to our work and create antidotes to the anxiety of these times have been amazing and game-changing for me. And they are micro steps, Brianne, as you know, literally small daily incremental steps, like starting my day with 60 seconds of deep breathing, or washing my hands and thinking of 3 things I'm grateful for, or having a social media news cutoff at the end of the day. So I'm not consuming coronavirus news just before I go to sleep. All these are like small incremental steps that I've been using and that we recommend to everyone we work with at Thrive to use.
That's incredible. Yeah, it's so amazing to see. You know, I started the firm exactly a year ago, and in many ways, it's been great for us to collaborate, just looking at our similar shared values and, you know, technology's impact on our daily lives. And it's been so, you know, it's been such an important mission over these past few months, just seeing how few boundaries people have between work and life. And it's been, you know, there's a lot of challenges, I think, specifically for new parents or women in the workplace who are balancing both work and life at home and, you know, with very little separation. And so I'd love to get your thoughts on, you know, what has what is technology's role, and what is the role for startup founders and for leaders who are, really thinking about how do we holistically balance both, because now there's sort of no separation between work and life. And so, how do you think about technology's role in the day-to-day, and what is the role of a startup founder who is, setting the rules and the boundaries for their employees?
Well, first of all, obviously, technology has been absolutely essential, and technological innovation has been key during these times. We are working with Zoom, for example, and look at what has happened, with Zoom being a lifeline, or Teams, or whatever video conferencing technology we are using, not just for work, but for our personal lives, for weddings, for holidays. So that kind of goes without saying. And a lot of technology founders are making a huge contribution. What we are working with at Thrive is to also add a human layer to the technology. So obviously we have a SaaS enterprise app that we've brought to many companies, whether it's Accenture, Verizon, Walmart, big multinational companies, but also smaller companies. But also in those apps, to make sure that we take care of our humanity. Having, for example, the 60-second reset during the day, because stress is unavoidable, Brianne, especially during times like these, but cumulative stress is not. So in our app, we have a feature called Reset, which comes preloaded either with 60-second guides to breathe, to stretch, to remember what you're grateful for, but also the opportunity for a user to build their own personalized guide based on things you love. Mine has pictures of my kids, my pet, my favorite quotes, music, and a breathing pacer. So one of the things we're finding is that sharing these personalized guides at the beginning or the middle or the end of meetings also creates deeper connections, because we're sharing part of our lives, we're sharing something intimate. And at times when we can't be physically together, that makes a big difference.
Yeah, that absolutely makes sense. I loved your point earlier, looking at a platform like Zoom, which essentially started out as an enterprise product, mostly used by people in a corporate setting, to see how it's evolved to now becoming a platform that's used by yoga instructors and wedding planners and all different types of work. I feel like are starting to use these tools that were traditionally for more corporate culture. One thing that I love specifically about Thrive and Thrive's mission is how much thoughtfulness there is around all types of work. And so looking at even a business like Walmart, which has both corporate employees and individuals that are now frontline workers working in stores and providing medications and doing all of these things that are very critical in a time like this. How do you think about Microsteps and the Thrive mission? And are there differences and tangible examples that you can speak to for corporate employees versus, some of the frontline workers and people that are doing more hourly work and, out in the real world?
Well, actually, Brianne, thanks for raising that, because we are passionate at Thrive about reaching not just knowledge workers, those of us who are now able to work from home, but frontline workers. And we signed a 5-year contract with Walmart to be their exclusive wellness provider for the 2.2 million associates. And we love the work we are doing with their store employees. And actually, if you go to our Instagram account, ThriveZip, ZP, you will see these amazing stories of people who are dealing with extraordinary stresses in their lives, working from stores with the extra anxiety of that, but being able through this concept of one better choice, one micro step a day, seeing how it all adds up to healthier habits and real changes in their lives in terms of losing weight, in terms of reversing diabetes, real tangible health outcomes. And also, Brianne, at Thrive, from the beginning, we've made that connection between well-being and productivity. So there is no trade-off between the two. When we improve our well-being, we improve our productivity. And companies are recognizing that if you are totally focused on business metrics, your employees' well-being is essential, now more than ever.
Yeah, that makes total sense. When you think about, not having those trade-offs and the ability to really be productive and also think holistically about your well-being, have there been any interesting anecdotes, or have you personally experienced a moment of self-reflection or a change in some of your goals during this period in time? I noticed specifically, you had your birthday party over Zoom, which was lovely to see family and friends and people coming together virtually, for a personal milestone. Are you also hearing, are people reevaluating their work life, or are they, taking time to self-reflect, or what have been some of the changes you've observed in other people and friends in your network?
Oh, absolutely, Brianne. I think that we are all recognizing that these are times of extraordinary trials. I mean, many people, losing loved ones, losing jobs, also dealing at the same time with the social justice and racial justice reckoning. So all that is also a catalyst for fundamental changes, for giving up what was not working before. And one of the things we are all realizing was not working was the frenetic nature of our lives. And so both I and many of the people we're working with are looking at our lives and saying, do I really need to travel as much? Do I really need to go back to a life where I never have a meal with my family at night? I mean, one of the things that we've all loved is the opportunity to actually reclaim the family meal and have more honest and in-depth conversations. And also, we are coming face-to-face with our growing addiction to our phones. That's something which we're seeing now kind of more than ever, and the need to set boundaries.
Yeah, that makes absolute sense. And you're the perfect person to speak to this, given, your openness, talking about burnout and your own personal experiences. And, I'd love to learn a little bit more about how do we actually strike that balance between staying informed and staying connected, and, how do we conserve our energy for the moments that matter without necessarily getting too triggered or too, immersed in some of these new patterns that we're seeing on social media?
Well, I actually love what you said about not getting too triggered. And we launched a thriving mind experience, which is around our stress triggers. Because we are looking at the mental health crisis magnified. And we see that the key is to go upstream and identify stress triggers before they become depression and anxiety. And so this is based on the latest Stanford brain research. And the key here is to recognize that we all have different stress triggers. Professor Leanne Williams has identified 8, as she calls them, biotypes. So it could be rumination, or it could be negative bias, which is very prevalent right now as people are looking at the uncertainty of over the future and immediately moving into negative fantasies. So that's where we are giving the people we are working with in different companies the tools and techniques to identify, let's say, negative bias and help themselves not move into negative fantasies. One of the quotes we use in Thriving Mind is from Montaigne, who said, "There were many terrible things in my life, but most of them never happened."
That's brilliant. Yeah, it's so interesting to see. I mean, I feel very optimistic about, you know, some of these shifts that are happening at home as people are reconnecting with their neighborhood and getting to know their neighbors for the first time and enjoying family dinner at home. The question that continuously comes up, I think, especially with early stage founders and, you know, individuals that are just getting their business off the ground during this moment in time. How do you think about, you know, if you're starting a culture from day one, or if you're just building some of these best practices, you know, how do you create a culture where there's empathy and where employees feel that they have a voice and they're able to, you know, talk about that balance between work and life and, you know, the many things that they're juggling at home behind the scenes?
Well, the first thing is a mindset shift. You know, we know that founders, I know because I totally bought into the founder myth that in order to be a successful founder, you have to be always on. And so we have failed to recognize that you are much more likely to make a lot of mistakes when you are depleted and running on empty. When I was building the Huffington Post, I totally bought into that myth, and I collapsed from burnout and exhaustion. I learned a lot from that experience, and I built Thrive very differently, recognizing that the worst mistakes I have made were when I was exhausted. And I think every founder can identify with that. So starting with the founder's kind of well-being and recognizing that will make them even more effective and creative and innovative. But at the same time, creating a culture where we call it compassionate directness prevails, which means where everybody can express themselves both in terms of anything they're unhappy with, but also in terms of ideas, that the prerogative for good ideas is not held with the people at the top. And of course, at some point, you know, you need to move into execution. So as we say at Thrive, we're not a debating society. So at some point you have to make a decision and people have to rally around the decision or leave if they're not comfortable with it. But it all starts with this compassionate directness.
That's amazing. Yeah, it's great to hear just the thoughtfulness and the comprehensive nature of how you've thought about the platform using Stanford research, and, you know, you've built both an offering for employers, but also what's awesome and very work-life aligned is, you know, the interaction and the relationship that you build with individuals as well. So this is our, as you know, this is our first annual event. WorkLife is exactly 1 year old. We have a 3-day event all over Zoom. And so we have a mix of talks for founders, talks for our investors, and some entertainment and workshops for creators and freelancers and individuals as well. And so with our last 5 minutes left, I'd love to talk a little bit more about Thrive's offering for individuals, because we will have a mix of, you know, people who work at big companies, our investors, but also there's this new era of a lot of freelancers and creators and people that, you know, want to have their own businesses. And so I'd love to hear, you know, how you think about actionable ways for individuals to implement the Thrive methodologies, and, you know, what are some of those micro moments and micro steps that we can implement, as soon as today.
Absolutely. So yes, I'm also looking at some of the questions in the chat, and one of them is Thrive only a SaaS enterprise product or also available for consumers? So the Thrive Global app is a SaaS enterprise product, and anybody who wants to engage with us, you can email me at ah@thriveglobal.com. But also the Thrive Zip app, Thrive capital Z capital P, is available for consumers. So if you want to engage with that, it's available. If you have any problems or you want to know more, please email me. And thriveglobal.com is a media platform, which you can visit, share your own stories. We are big believers, as you know, Brianne, in bringing together the latest science with storytelling. So both in our apps and on the media platform, you'll find a lot of stories and science to motivate you as you are starting on a journey of greater health and productivity, all broken down into micro steps. And of course, if you want to just get great quotes and inspiration, go to my Instagram account, Arianna Huff with 2 Fs, because that's all I share, except for the latest wedding pictures from my daughter's wedding.
Yes, it's been great to see. I think, especially during this extended period of, shelter in place and working from home, it's been awesome to see you personally living the Thrive values through your birthday and weddings. And it's great to see that balance and just, how much of an inspiration you are, to WorkLife founders and to our broader community. And so we're very grateful to have this discussion, especially from your home, which feels extra personal.
Oh, thank you so much, Brianne. Thank you for what you are doing. And I look forward to doing more together with you and with WorkLife.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Well, we have just a few minutes left. We have 3 days of events. And so today is a pretty action-packed day. We have a number of talks on the future of work and on design and business. And later today, we have a musical performance as well. Arianna, we also have a late night conversation in Clubhouse, which is an audio network that we've backed. And so it's going to be 3 days of fun events. This is sort of our combination of Sun Valley meets South by Southwest. And so we want to give talks to our investors, but also, instill a little bit of culture. And so we'll have some musical performance as well. And so thank you for kicking things off today and for being such a valuable part of the WorkLife community from the beginning.
Thank you so much, Brianne, and have a fabulous 3 days.
Awesome. Thank you again.
Bye-bye.